Messiah, Katie and Magdalena here with our hymn devotion for this coming Sunday, March 21st. We are going to be looking at another Lenten hymn, one that's pretty familiar to most of us, When I Survey the Wondrous Cross. And when I was doing this research for the devotion today, I remembered how sometimes when we sing a text over and over again, we can lose sight of its meaning because it is so familiar. And that was certainly the case normally with this hymn. When I sing it, I don't pay attention to the words as much, but there is such depth, both theologically and poetically, to this text. I really enjoyed learning about it, and I hope that as you sing it in the future, you can look past the familiarity and to all of the dimensions that it brings and how it can enrich both our worship and our faith. So the author of this hymn, Isaac Watts, a very important figure in early hymnody, structured this hymn using a common devotional trope, or pattern is another word for trope. So using this pattern, he closely examines one thing and then uses this one thing to reevaluate all things. So in the case of our hymn, the hymn examines, or another word for examines, surveys, like we see in the title of the hymn, When I Survey. The hymn examines the cross and the body and blood of Christ, these two specific things, and then views all of the Christian life and the world in light of this one specific thing. So the body and blood of Christ and the crucifixion helps us to view our lives and the world in a whole new light. So let's take a look together on how Isaac Watts does this. The first two stanzas are the first section of our hymn, and Isaac Watts used the words from Galatians 6:14 as the basis, which you can see here. A little context to these verses. In the letter to Galatians, Paul assures the church that circumcision is not necessary for salvation because Christ's death alone can save us, and our works don't have a part in our salvation. When we live under the cross, we live a new life apart from the regulations and expectations of both the old covenant and of this world. So we know that the cross then begins to have a new effect on our lives. So Isaac Watts particularly captures this verse from Galatians in the end of stanza 1. My richest gain I count but lost, and pour contempt on all my pride. And then in all of stanza 2, forbid it, Lord, that I should boast, save in the death of Christ my God. All the vain things that charm me most, I sacrifice them to his blood. In the next section of this poem, Isaac Watts looks at the world through the new lens of the cross. And in this section, you're going to see a verse that is not included in any modern hymnals as far as I know, but that was part of the original. Isaac Watts actually thought this verse was too deep to include in a book of congregational poetry, so he omitted it himself, but it's important to kind of get the sense of the structure of this text. So when we look at this next section, which is 2 stanzas, it has a pretty intricate poetic structure. It moves from examining something specific to something general, and then back to something specific. So let's look at these 3 things. The first specific is where Isaac Watts examines the minute details of Jesus' body on the cross, and that's in our hymnal's stanza 3. See from his head, his hands, his feet, sorrow and love flow mingled down. Did ever such love and sorrow meet, or thorns compose so rich a crown? So you see the details of his body and also the detail of the crown of thorns, all these specific things about the events of Jesus' crucifixion. So after evaluating these specific details, Watts moves on to examine Christ's body in general. And this is found in this missing stanza, the first two lines. His dying crimson like a robe spreads o'er his body on the tree. Then we are still in the general, but this time we're looking at the general relationship of the speaker or the hymn writer to the world in light of the cross. Then I am dead to all the globe, and all the globe is dead to me. Finally, in the final stanza that we'll sing on Sunday, we are reminded of what specifically life looks like under the cross. So we're the whole realm of nature mind that we're a tribute far too small. Love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all. A couple final notes on this hymn. Isaac Watts actually placed this hymn as a communion hymn. So as you sing it on Sunday, pay attention to some of the references to Christ's body and blood, the language of flowing, the power of love, and then the transformation of the Christian's life. I hope that this in-depth look at our hymn brings a new meaning to this profound and familiar text as you sing it in the future. Hymns are truly a work of art and deserve our attention and our appreciation. We look forward to seeing you next week for another Lenten hymn, this time to celebrate Palm Sunday. So God's peace be with you this coming week.